Honey,
He's just the warehouse guy with my last name.
He's just the warehouse guy with my last name, Madison said. The investors around her laughed like I was a joke someone had already paid for. I stood 10 feet behind her with my hand inside my jacket, gripping a folded court packet so tightly the paper corners cut into my palm. Madison had not seen me yet. Or maybe she had, and that was worse. The ballroom at the Arlen House Hotel was glowing with champagne lights, white orchids, and the kind of soft music rich people use to pretend greed has manners. On every table sat a little black card embossed with silver lettering, Holloway Ridge Development Strategic Logistics Partner, Caldwell Freight, my company name. My family name. My life's work, printed under the name of the man standing beside my wife. Grant Holloway lifted his glass and grinned at me over Madison's shoulder. "Ethan, buddy," he said loud enough for the circle to hear. "No hard feelings. Some men build empires. Some men just park trucks." Another laugh moved through the group. Madison's smile twitched, but she did not defend me. She only leaned toward Grant and hissed, "Don't start. This is my night." Her night. That was what she called it. Not our marriage. Not our company. Not the 11 years I spent waking before sunrise so she could sleep in a house I paid for and entertain people who now looked at me like I delivered the ice. I looked at her left hand. Bare. No ring. That was the moment the room changed for me. Not when she laughed at me. Not when Grant used my last name on his investor packet. Not even when I saw the pledge forms with my company listed as collateral support. It was the empty finger. Because the ring Madison was supposed to be wearing was not just a ring. It had belonged to my mother. My father bought it for her in 1987, back when Caldwell Freight had 3 trucks, a rented yard, and more debt than fuel. My mother used to joke that the ring was the only thing they owned that could not break down on the interstate. Before she died, she put it into the family trust with one handwritten line attached to the inheritance schedule, for Ethan's wife, if she understands what family means. Madison had worn it for 9 years. And now, at 9:17 on a Thursday night, at the party she told me was only a small networking event, her finger was empty. I stepped forward. "Honey," I said. Madison froze. The investors turned. Grant's grin widened. I kept my voice calm. That took effort. My heart was beating so hard I could hear blood in my ears. "Where is your ring?" The color drained from Madison's face so fast even Grant stopped smiling. She recovered quickly. She always did in public. "I had it cleaned," she snapped. "In the middle of your party?" I asked. "At 9 at night?" A woman holding a champagne flute lowered it an inch. Madison stepped closer, her voice dropping into the tone she used when she wanted to make me feel small without leaving bruises. "Go home before you embarrass yourself." That used to work. For years, that one sentence could send me back to the truck yard, back to the office, back to silence. But not tonight. "Embarrass myself?" I said. "You told these people I was a dumb truck owner while using my company name to raise money for your boyfriend." Grant laughed once. "Careful, Ethan. That sounds like defamation." I pulled one page from my jacket and laid it on the bar between the champagne buckets. "No," I said. "This sounds like collateral fraud." Madison looked down. Her fingers tightened around her glass. "What is that?" she whispered. "The pawn intake agreement you signed for my mother's $92,000 wedding ring." The room went quiet. Not awkward quiet. Suffocating quiet. Madison stared at the page like it had crawled out of the floor. "You had no right to dig into my private life." I looked at her bare hand. "You pledged family property to cover Grant's bridge loan. You made it business." Grant's jaw flexed. "That ring was hers." "Wrong," I said. "Separate property. Held by a family trust. Listed in a notarized inheritance schedule before Madison ever wore it." Madison's eyes flicked to Grant. "You said the lender wouldn't check." There it was. The first crack. Grant backed up half a step. Don't put this on me. I nodded toward the ballroom entrance. My attorney, Daniel Mercer, had just walked in carrying a leather folder and the kind of expression that makes guilty people search for exits. Madison's voice dropped. Ethan, what did you do? Daniel reached the bar and set his folder beside my page. The judge signed an emergency preservation order at 6:14 p.m., he said. We waited to serve it until Mrs. Caldwell used Caldwell Freight in front of potential investors. Grant went still. One of the investors, a man in a navy suit, looked sharply at Madison. Used it how? Daniel opened the folder. Printed materials. Pledge forms. Investor packets. One fake logistics partnership agreement. And a bridge loan packet that lists Caldwell Freight assets as indirect support. Madison shook her head. No, that is not what that means. It means exactly what it says, I told her. You put my company name on Grant's project to make his debt look safer. Grant raised both hands like he was calming a dog. This is a domestic misunderstanding. Investors don't need to hear this. The man in the navy suit stepped back. Actually, I do. My wire clears Monday. That was the second crack. Madison reached for my sleeve. Ethan, please. Don't do this here. I pulled my arm free. You did it here because you thought greed looked better under champagne lights. Her mother shoved through the circle before Madison could answer. Karen Vale had the same smile as her daughter, only colder from practice. Ethan, she snapped. Stop acting unstable. You always do this when Madison shines. Daniel lifted one hand. Mrs. Vale, do not interfere with service. Karen blinked. Service? The word moved through the investors like a draft. Madison grabbed her mother's arm. Mom, tell him he can't freeze my money. I stared at her. Your money? You mean the account my payroll deposits fed for 11 years? Grant cut in. This is marital drama. It has nothing to do with Holloway Ridge. Daniel removed a second document. It has everything to do with Holloway Ridge. $240,000 left a Caldwell-linked operating account through a fake consulting invoice. Madison's lips parted. That was event money. Then why? I asked. Did $60,000 land in Grant's lender escrow? Grant's face hardened. Shut your mouth. I turned to him. Say that again after the subpoena. Madison leaned close, teeth clenched, perfume sharp enough to make my eyes sting. You'll destroy both of us. No, Madison, I said. You lit the fuse. Daniel slid a sealed envelope onto the bar. Notice of litigation hold. Phones, laptops, cloud accounts, investor communications, bank records. Delete one message, alter one file, or wipe one device, and we ask the court for sanctions. Madison stared at the envelope. For the first time that night, she looked less like a hostess and more like someone who had heard a door lock behind her. Ethan, she said softly. Funny how fast love comes back when the audit starts. Grant reached for the envelope. Daniel blocked him with 2 fingers. Not yours. Grant's mouth went flat. You're making a huge mistake. I kept my eyes on Madison. No. The mistake was using my mother's ring like a casino chip. Madison snapped back to life. Stop calling it your mother's ring. Then show the receipt. I said. Show one document with your name on it. Karen leaned in. Madison, do not answer him. Daniel nodded once. That is the first smart legal advice anyone on your side has given tonight. Grant turned to the investors with a wounded smile. This is a bitter husband trying to sabotage a clean project. The man in the navy suit lifted his phone. Then you won't mind sending us the escrow statement. Grant's eyes cut to Madison. She whispered, Don't. I heard it. So did everyone close enough. That, I said, is the first honest thing you've said tonight? Madison stepped close enough that only I was supposed to hear her. But the room was too quiet now. You want war? She said. Fine. I'll tell the court you threatened me. I'll tell them you controlled every dollar. I'll tell them I was trapped. Daniel opened another section of his folder. Then we will produce the messages where you coached Mr. Holloway to call Ethan financially unsophisticated in front of investors. Madison's mouth shut. Grant cursed under his breath. You recorded us? I didn't blink. No. Your assistant forwarded screenshots after you stiffed her last paycheck. Madison spun toward him. You didn't pay Claire? Grant's hands came up. This is not the place. It became the place, I said, when my last name became your fundraising strategy. Daniel slid a small photo across the bar. The ring sat in a lender's intake tray beside Grant's driver's license. Madison grabbed the photo, then dropped it when Daniel said, Chain of custody has already been certified. Grant's voice dropped. You have no idea who you're messing with. The navy-suited investor stepped even farther from him. Actually, he said, I think we do now. Madison grabbed my arm again, nails pressing through my sleeve. Ethan, give me 10 minutes alone. No, I can fix the ring. You cannot fix fraud with a check after discovery starts. Karen barked. Madison, we are leaving. Daniel pointed toward the exit. She may leave. Her phone must be preserved. Madison's eyes widened. You can't take my phone. Nobody is taking it, Daniel said. But if one message disappears after service, the judge gets a motion before breakfast. Grant started backing toward the hallway. I called after him. Run slow, Grant. Your bank moves faster than you do. He stopped. Daniel looked up from his folder. Holloway Ridge LLC is not the only entity on the wire trail. Madison turned slowly. What does that mean? Daniel placed 3 bank printouts on the bar. It means the $240,000 did not go to event costs. It moved through Vail Creative, then Ridgepoint Management, then into a lender escrow account in Plano. Karen's face tightened. Vail Creative is my company. I looked at her. Exactly. Madison stared at her mother. Mom, you said it was clean. Karen's mouth pinched into a white line. Do not talk in front of them. One investor picked up a printout. My name is listed as pending capital. I never authorized that. Grant lunged for the page. Give me that. Daniel stepped between them. Touch it and I add intimidation to the affidavit. Grant froze. Madison's voice cracked. Ethan, you're ruining my family. No, I said. Your family invests mine. Daniel slid over the forged vendor agreement. And this signature is not Mr. Caldwell's. Madison stared at it. I did not sign that. Karen snapped. Madison, stop. The room shifted. Because when someone says, I didn't sign that, before anyone accuses them of signing it, everybody hears the truth trying to escape. The investor in the Navy suit took out his phone. I am calling my counsel. Grant whispered. Karen, fix this. That was when Madison understood. Not fully, but enough. She looked from Grant to her mother, then to me. For the first time in years, I saw her realize she might not be the smartest person in the room. I looked at her bare hand. First the ring, then the money. Now my signature. You didn't marry me, Madison. You tried to liquidate me. Her eyes hardened again. Pride is strange that way. Even when it is bleeding out, it still wants a mirror. Madison straightened like the ballroom still belonged to her. You think paperwork scares me? She snapped her fingers at the bartender. Get him out of here before he poisons the donors. The bartender did not move. He looked at me instead. 6 years earlier, I had paid for his daughter's tow after her car died outside our warehouse during a rainstorm. He remembered. Madison did not. Grant found his confidence again, or at least borrowed a cheap version of it. He tapped his phone. I can make one call and your trucks sit at way stations for a week. I looked at him. Try it. Madison stepped in front of me, voice low and sharp. You'll lose the house. I'll take half the company. I'll make sure every judge in this county sees you as a bitter control freak who punished his wife for having ambition. Daniel slid one clean document forward. The company is not marital property. Madison blinked. What? Caldwell Freight sits inside a family trust created before the marriage, he said. Your lifestyle was funded by distributions, not ownership. Grant's smirk disappeared. Madison grabbed the document. That's fake. Filed 12 years ago. I said. You signed the spousal acknowledgement after our honeymoon. The notary was your cousin. Karen's eyes flashed. Madison, not another word. Madison shoved the document back. Then I'll go after the house. Daniel nodded calmly. The house was purchased with traced separate property distributions and renovated with trust funds. We expected that argument. I picked up the photo of the ring. You were shopping for half an empire, Madison. You did not even read the receipt. For 1 second, nobody spoke. Then Grant's phone buzzed. Then Madison's. Then Karen's. 3 faces dropped at once. Karen looked at her screen first. Why is my business account restricted? Daniel did not look up. Temporary preservation hold. Not a final ruling. Enough to stop disputed funds from moving before the hearing. Grant shoved his phone toward Madison. My escrow draw just got rejected. The navy-suited investor stepped back like Grant had become contagious. We're out. Another donor set her glass on a tray. Madison, did you use Ethan's company name on my pledge form? Madison grabbed the woman's wrist. Don't walk away from me. The woman pulled free. My attorney will call yours. Then the ballroom doors opened again. 2 uniformed county officers entered with a civil process server between them. Grant's face changed completely. Not scared. Exposed. There is a difference. The process server checked a folder. Grant Holloway? Grant's voice cracked. For what? The server handed him a packet. Emergency injunction and notice of receiver petition. Madison whispered. Receiver? Daniel closed his folder. For Holloway Ridge assets connected to disputed funds. Karen turned on Madison. You said he had money? Grant snapped back. I had commitments until your daughter got sloppy. Madison slapped his arm. You begged me for that ring. Every phone near them lifted. I did not smile. There was nothing funny about watching my marriage confessed in public. I only picked up the trust document and slid it back into Daniel's folder. Careful, Madison, I said. You are not confessing to love. You are confessing to collateral fraud. Madison lunged for the phone in Grant's hand. Fix it. Call your lender. Grant jerked away from her. There is no draw now. The lender killed it after the injunction notice. Karen's phone rang again. She looked at the screen and turned pale. My payroll line was just suspended. Daniel said. Your company processed disputed funds. The bank wants indemnity before releasing anything further. Madison turned to me. The woman who had called me warehouse guy in front of strangers was gone. In her place stood my wife, or what was left of the performance. Ethan, she said. Unlock it. I'll sign whatever you want. You already did, I said. 12 years ago. The process server handed Madison another packet. Notice of temporary orders hearing. She shoved it back. I'm not taking that. He placed it on the bar. You've been served. Grant backed toward the doors alone. No one followed him. That was the part Madison noticed most. Not the papers. Not the investors. Not the ring. Grant leaving without her. One donor whispered, delete my photo with them. Madison heard it and spun around. You people ate my food, drank my champagne, and now you act clean? The donor looked at her with pure disgust. You bought it with stolen money. Daniel placed the recovered pawn receipt beside the photo. The lender has agreed to surrender the ring pending ownership verification. It will go back to the trust custodian, not to either spouse. Madison stared at her bare finger. She had been hiding it all night. Now it was the loudest thing in the room. I picked up the photo and slid it into the folder. "You sold the one thing that proved you were my wife," I said, then acted shocked when I stopped treating you like one. Her face twisted. For a moment I thought she might cry. Instead, she laughed. It was small, sharp, and ugly. "You think they care about you?" she said, gesturing at the investors. "They care because you scared them. Tomorrow they will call you a jealous husband with a lawyer and a trust fund." I nodded. Maybe. That answer surprised her. So I continued. "Maybe tomorrow you will tell everyone I was cruel. Maybe Grant will blame you. Maybe your mother will say she was protecting her company. Maybe half this room will pretend they never smiled when you called me the warehouse guy." I leaned closer. "But tonight they heard you." Madison's eyes flicked around the room. Every face had changed. People who had laughed at me now looked at her like she was something spilled on white carpet. That is the thing about public humiliation. It feels powerful until the direction changes. Karen grabbed Madison's elbow. "We are leaving." Madison did not move. She looked at me again, and for the first time that night, her voice carried no performance. "Did you ever love me?" The question almost worked. Almost. Because once, the answer would have broken me. Once, I would have remembered the woman who cried during our wedding vows. The woman who danced barefoot in my mother's kitchen. The woman who held my hand at the hospital when my father could not remember my name. But the woman in front of me had pawned my mother's ring and used my name to borrow against a future I never agreed to sell. So I told her the truth. "I loved the woman I thought you were." Her mouth trembled. "That's not fair." "No," I said. "What you did was not fair. This is paperwork." Grant tried one last time from the doorway. "Madison, come on." She turned toward him. "Where?" He had no answer. That was when she finally understood what I had understood days earlier. Grant did not want her. He wanted access. To my name. To my company. To the ring. To the illusion that Madison Caldwell could open doors he could not. Once the doors closed, he did not even hold them for her. Madison looked back at me. "Please," she whispered. "Don't let them all see me like this." I thought of every dinner where she corrected my grammar in front of her friends. Every party where she introduced me without my title. Every time she said, "Ethan handles trucks," while leaving out the word owns. Every night I came home smelling like diesel and rain while she complained that I did not understand presentation. I looked around the ballroom. The champagne towers were still glittering. The orchids still smelled expensive. The cards still had my company name printed under Grant's. "No," I said. "You chose the lighting." Daniel touched my elbow. "That is enough for tonight." He was right. Not because Madison deserved mercy. Because I deserved distance. I turned and walked toward the exit. Behind me, Madison called my name. Not Ethan. Not Honey. My full name. Ethan Caldwell. I stopped, but I did not turn around. She said, "You'll regret this." I looked back then. Not at Madison. At Grant. At Karen. At every investor holding a phone, every donor pretending they had always been suspicious, every server watching silently from the edge of the room. Then I looked at my wife's empty hand. "I already did," I said. "For 11 years. The next morning, Madison's attorney called Daniel before 9. That told me everything. Guilty people threaten at night. By morning, they ask for quiet. Daniel put the call on speaker in the conference room above our freight yard. Through the window, I could see 8 Caldwell trucks rolling out in a clean line, each one carrying a name Madison thought was only useful when printed on investor cards. Her attorney was careful. "She wants to resolve this privately," I said. "She had private before she forged my name." He paused. "We dispute that characterization." Daniel looked at me, then answered for both of us. "You can dispute it at the temporary orders hearing." By noon, we sent one term sheet. Return every disputed dollar. Waive spousal support. Release any claim against the trust. Consent to a forensic review of Veil Creative. Agree never to use Caldwell Freight, Caldwell Family Assets, or my last name in any business, fundraising, pledge, or investor material again. At 3:42 p.m., Madison called me from a blocked number. I almost did not answer. But part of healing is proving to yourself that a voice no longer owns you. So I picked up. She did not say hello. You can't leave me with nothing. I looked across my desk at the framed photo of my parents standing beside their first truck. I am leaving you with your choices. Her breathing shook. You made me look like a criminal. No, I said. I brought receipts. She went quiet. Then the old Madison returned for one last performance. I'll tell everyone you destroyed me. I looked at the signed preservation order on my desk. They watched you do it yourself. 2 weeks later, the courthouse hallway smelled like floor wax and old coffee. Madison arrived without cameras, donors, or grant. That was the first thing I noticed. The second was her left hand. Still bare. Karen was not with her. Either. Veil Creative had lost its credit line after the bank reviewed the transaction path. Grant's receiver notice had become public record. The investors had frozen their commitments. Claire, his assistant, had given Daniel enough records to turn a civil hearing into something much heavier if Madison kept lying. She did not keep lying. Not in court. The judge approved the temporary freeze, ordered reimbursement of marital waste pending final accounting, and barred Madison from using Caldwell Freight, trust assets, or my last name in any future business dealings. When the hearing ended, Madison waited near the elevators. For a second, she looked younger. Not innocent. Just smaller without an audience. So that's it? She asked. Daniel stood beside me holding a sealed evidence bag. Inside it was my mother's ring. Recovered. Verified. Logged. Released to the trust custodian. Madison stared at it like it might still remember her. Ethan, she whispered. I wore that ring for 9 years. I know. It meant something. It did. Her eyes filled. So give it to me. For 1 second, I saw the whole marriage in that request. Not apology. Not accountability. Possession. I took the evidence bag from Daniel. Madison's hand lifted slightly. I placed the ring back into Daniel's palm. Not hers. No, I said. Now it belongs where greed can't touch it. The elevator opened behind her. Madison did not step in. She just stood there, staring at the hand that had once worn my mother's blessing and then traded it for another man's loan. I walked past her toward the courthouse doors. Outside, one of our trucks rolled by at the light, white trailer shining in the sun, Caldwell Freight written clean and blue across the side. For the first time in months, I did not feel humiliated by the name on it. I felt protected by it. Because some men build empires. Some men park trucks. And some men are smart enough to know when the woman laughing at them is standing on everything they built.